Hi guys, welcome to Comics Obscurity. This is your host, Jack Talk Ty. This one, we're going to talk about the homes of some of our favorite superheroes and the places where they live and their headquarters. Now, one of the first places I want to talk about, as we see here, is the world-famous Baxter Building, the home of the Fantastic Four, or the former home of the Fantastic Four. Now, the Baxter Building's been around for quite a while. And it's a pretty famous. It's considered a historical site in the Marvel universe. It's got a Fantastic Four gift shop on the first floor. You know, they have a robot receptionist. Some of you may remember from the cartoons as a kid, Herbie the robot. If you remember, they replaced the Human Torch on the animated, I think it was Hanna-Barbera did a series, and they did not want to include the Human Torch because they were afraid children would set themselves afire in emulation of him. And Herbie was later worked into the series, and he was kind of like the little mascot type character buzzing around the Baxter Building. The Baxter Building has here, as we see, it's got a portal to the negative zone, and it's got all types of stuff. He's got all types of spaceships and rockets. The thing is soundproofed, so when his rocket launches, it doesn't, shatter the windows and stuff around. It's a very famous building. It's been the home of the FF for a while. It was destroyed at one point in the 80s, completely blown. It was launched into space by the second Doctor Doom, by Doctor Doom's adopted son, Christoph. Launched the thing into space and ultimately blew it up. And it was replaced with something called Four Freedoms Plaza, which was later dealt with by the Thunderbolts. So now that's gone, and we have the new Baxter Building, relatively new. And it's currently owned by millionaire playboy Peter Parker. He is the current owner. Parker, with his company Parker Industries, has brought up the Fantastic Four, and his attitude is he's just keeping it safe until the boys come home. So that's what's going on there. Now, we're going to move on here to the Doom Patrol, one of my favorite teams of all time. They're just a very unique group of characters. These guys came about around the same time as the X-Men debuted, and there's lots of similarities, and there could be some backstory behind that, and it could be coincidence. But Danny the Street is the home of the Doom Patrol, or at least was at one time. Now, Danny the Street is an actual street that is alive. It thinks and it lives. It's a transvestite street on top of that. So Danny has a lot of unique little businesses along its little route there, little street signs and stores, and the way Danny communicates is through signs in these windows or through smoke drifting through. He might form words out. That's how Danny communicates. Danny travels the world usually at nighttime. He'll find wherever he wants to be, and he'll, kind of nudge himself in amongst the grid of the city. He might appear in some little place in Idaho, and he's a new street in Idaho. Or he might decide he wants to go to Iraq, and he's some back road in Iraq. Now, he's Danny the Street. He's one of the coolest concepts I think Grant Morrison has ever come up with, in my opinion. Now, here we see the authorities. These guys don't play. They only encounter their villains once, if you can dig it. Mostly. They maybe have to think about it. They had a couple guys come back. But their home was the Carrier. The Carrier. Cruising through waves of pure thought, crashing through a storm of nightmares. It's a beautiful, beautiful ship. That is what we call a shift ship. It shifts between universes, between realities. Now, they found it. A guy named Henry Bendix, I believe, discovered it. And for a long time, they didn't know what it was. They just knew it was a huge, gigantic thing's 50 miles long. It's alive, if I didn't mention that already. It's super, super advanced alien technology, future technology. It travels between timelines and realities. Now, the engineer can, to a degree, communicate with it, and I think the Carrier is a she, if I'm not mistaken. And we ultimately find out that the Carriers are basically related to the race of the Monitors, and we see here the original Monitor from around this is from around 1985, but he debuted around 1982 or 1983 in the comic. I should also mention the Carrier was once taken over. The team was defeated by this guy, Tin-Willied Seth. Now, Tin-Willied Seth was at the time the most badass supervillain, or that's what he was intended to be. He had 1,001, if I'm not mistaken, superpowers. I can't even remember the names of some of them. And he just came in and literally took the authority out one by one. And I remember we on the message boards was just stunned because we couldn't tell who was really dead and who was coming back. It looked like Angie was dead, honestly. And Mark himself, the writer, would come on the boards and chat with us about our concern for the handling of the characters and, you know, the beautiful way he was writing the series at the time. So yeah, that's the Carrier. And finally, we go into the ultimate home of the ultimate superhero. This is my favorite guy because not only is he the first of all of them, but as a kid, he was the first guy I was introduced to via the George Reeves reruns of the black and white TV show. And this was my first introduction to this guy. And him being just this massively powerful, unique, or he's supposed to be unique because he's supposed to be the one only remaining member of his race, he should have big things. So that's why I don't mind him having a dog that can fly, because he's Superman. He's supposed to have. This is the guy, he bathes in the sun. Okay, he's Superman. He is the Superman, and this is his home, the Fortress of Solitude. Now, we may remember the Fortress. A lot of us were introduced to it, and its current look and vibe comes from from the movies, from the Christopher Reeve with the crystals and all of that. A lot of that has been worked into the comic. And so a lot of people who are familiar with the Fortress will immediately think of that place in the Antarctic with the ice and the crystals. And it's he's got tons of artifacts in there. The dude, he's got the Titanic hanging from the ceiling, like kids would have model airplanes hanging from their ceilings when they were 13. He's got a bottled city from his home planet, the bottled city of Kandor, which I was always just fascinated. That was just a brilliant, fun comic book type concept to me. The guy has a city in a bottle. At one point, and again, we go to Grant Morrison. One of my favorite runs was All-Star Superman. At one point, Grant reveals us that Superman has created a universe because he wants to observe what the world would be like without Superman. I don't want to spoil the story too much. I don't want to get too much detail. But he creates a universe, and it's a universe that's basically our world without a Superman, no superheroes. But his influence is so strong that in 1938 or so, two little kids get together and create Superman anyway. So he is the guy that created our timeline, apparently. He's just, and this is all in the Fortress of Solitude, which is what name can you come up with cooler? You got the X Mansion, you got the Bat Cave, and these things have become iconic over years. But this guy's place is called the Fortress of Solitude. Come on now, please. He has a key that's made from the material of a dense white dwarf star. So it's so heavy only he can lift it. So listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We will be coming back with more similar type things. And if you've got some things you'd like us to talk about or some things you feel I may have glossed over that we should have touched on more, please leave us comments, good or bad. We're here to take it all. And I thank you guys for listening. This has been Jack Talk Ty for Comics Obscurity. We'll see you soon.